So if you clicked on this video, you're looking for ways to get more consistent in your weight loss and your exercise, and that's what we're going to get into today. And it's tough. I know what it's like. I know it's like when you don't necessarily like to do fitness. You know, there are people out there that love it, they thrive on it, and they're really good at it. And then there's a large proportion of the population that doesn't. Same with clean eating. I'd much rather eat some nasty burger than, you know, a load of lettuce or whatever it is you use to moderate your calories in. And it's tough. It's tough being consistent. And it's one of those things that you can easily beat yourself up and get frustrated with and throw in the towel. How many times you go, right, okay, I'm going to start a new diet. I'm going to start training this week. You know, 3, 2, 1, go. You get going, and then it just fails within a couple of days. You throw in the towel and you think, sod it, I'll start again next week. You know, and this consistently happens. And the issue with results is that we are what we consistently do. It's not what you do every now and again that counts. It's what you consistently do that just makes all the difference. And this is why it's so important. So in this video today, I'm going to talk to you about consistency. I'm going to talk to you about some things that you've got that are relatively consistent and you can use that. I'm going to talk about other factors that you need to kind of look at and change. I'm going to show you a completely different way of looking at what you're doing right now in order to be consistent. And then ultimately, I'm going to talk to you why sometimes going away to like a fitness retreat, military boot camp, like the one we run at TEAM Bootcamp, is the only way to go. Now, this isn't a sales video. I genuinely want to get valuable information across to you to help you understand. So let's go. Okay, when we're talking about being consistent, ultimately, we're talking about being consistent with your behaviors, because remember that it's your behaviors that get you results. Okay, you can't just think yourself thin. You know, you can't, do you know what, today you can't identify yourself as like £10 less this week. I suppose you could, but you know, it's really defeating the object. So that's what we're talking about. Now let's have a little look at our behaviours. So imagine this is you, and then you've got a series of behaviours that you conduct throughout the day, and those behaviours might be, this might be watching TV, this might be eating chocolate, this one might be going to work, reading a book. You can see that you've got all these different behaviours, and you can see that, you know, all these different results, they get you your results, because it's the actions you take to get your results. I'm just going to put a pound sign there because, you know, I don't know what else to use to represent results. And that's fine and all dandy. So I think, okay, this is what I do, this is what I do. Now, a lot of those behaviours are habits. We're going to talk about habits in the future. A lot of those behaviours will be stimulated by the things around you, you know, but ultimately we need to kind of clean these out, change them, and do the behaviours that you need to do in order to get the results you want, okay? Now, that all sounds really, really easy. And what I've learned is that nowadays, especially with the likes of ChatGPT, with the internet, you know, the amount of information out there, we've got all the information we need. Okay, we've got no problem accessing that information, and people come to TEAM Bootcamp much more educated than they used to do, okay, on diet, exercise, nutrition, all these things. Where we're missing, the thing that we're missing is the implementation. It's being able to implement it into our life, and that's what this session is about today. Okay, so what we're talking about there with our behaviours, these behaviours, if you like, even in our mind, these behaviours are a result of what's going on in our mind. Now I'm going to do a rough brain. As you can see, that's my brain. It's much smaller than the size of my head. Okay, and we sort of think, right, okay, I have this thought in my brain, and then that translates into the actions of my body, actions here, and those actions then give us our results, okay? That's kind of what we think, but that's not what actually happens. What I want you to imagine now is that obviously you've got a couple of parts to your brain. Now, I haven't got the brain power to go deep into like psychology and stuff like that, but I just know this is how it functions. So what we've got, the brain is split into two parts. You've got your dog snoring in the corner, you've got your conscious part, and then obviously your subconscious part, all right? These are things that you can't really control. And actually your subconscious part of your brain is just so much more powerful than your conscious part. So what actually happens is you have this thought. So let's say this thought, is really positive. And I'm going to use a little green cross there to represent a little plus sign to represent positive. We have that thought, and we're like, okay, right, I'm going to go to the gym, back, get all my stuff together, right, I'm on. Then you wake up in the morning, grab your gym bag, and you're like, don't feel like it. And you suddenly get sidetracked, and it doesn't happen. It happens a lot. The intention the night before, or an hour before, or 10 minutes before was absolutely positive. And this time you're going to nail it. You're going to absolutely smash it. And this is the start of you living like a monk for the rest of your life. You're going to have the image you want. You're going to have the fitness you want. You're going to be running marathons within weeks. And that first session doesn't happen. Or maybe you've managed to do the first session and within a couple of weeks it starts to wane. You're losing motivation. You're not being consistent. And then it all flops. And what happens is, as we have that thought, the thought then goes down into the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind messes about with it. What will happen is it will bounce it off your beliefs, your values, your past experiences, your deep-rooted desires, your deep-rooted fears, all these things in your subconscious mind. Now, I know this is getting pretty deep. We're actually going to do more videos on this kind of stuff in the future, so stay with us and obviously make sure you subscribe so that you get those videos in the future. And let me know if there's other aspects or things that are not working or you want to know more about. That then goes down into our body and dictates our actions, and then that gets our results. And quite often what will happen is the results you get are negative. They're not the ones that we want. This is why you're on your way to the gym, you stop for fuel, blah, blah, blah. You're a little bit away with it, thinking about other stuff, get in the car, all of a sudden you got like a bloody bag of crisps or a chocolate bar in your hand, and you're like, I'm just going to the gym, what am I doing? Or, you go for a coffee, yeah, I'll just have a coffee, black coffee, please, yeah, thanks. Sit down, and you're like, how did I end up with a bloody carrot cake? I'm not doing this. I decided I weren't going to do this anymore. And you've just done it. You feel like you've let yourself down, and, you've got to start all over again. All right. So this is what happens. Now, there's loads of areas here that we could work on. We could work on, the subconscious mind. Now, that's pretty deep. We're going to do that in later videos. Okay. But this is really powerful, not just for diet, being active, there's so many different things. Love, other habits, work, earning money, being able to see yourself at a certain weight, finally getting the image that you want, all these things close that. So that's later. We could focus on the thoughts part of things because, the thoughts that we do can prime the brain. They may not be structured thoughts, and there's difference between unstructured thinking and structured thinking. We can look at the actual actions. We can look at the goals, because without a goal, how we're going to achieve it. There's a ton of stuff we're going to look at. Now, today, we're going to look at a part of the body which is pretty consistent in ways. It can always be optimized and improved, but chances are it's going to function in a relatively good way. Okay, so I want you to imagine that your body then is represented by this little triangle here. Now, your body is one massive ecosystem of different processes. All right, so this triangle then is our body. Now, as an example from that, you drink a glass of water, goes down into the body uses the water in whatever way it wants to use the water, then it's pushed forward, then used to get rid of a load of toxins and waste products, and then you pee it out, right? So there's a process there, and you can pretty much bet on it. Now, yeah, it does break. It does kind of go wrong in different ways. Sometimes people's kidneys get overloaded, or they get kidney stones or whatever. It's pretty consistent, all right? And if it's going to change, it usually changes slowly over a long period of time. An example there is becoming insulin resistant. So when you was born, chances are, unless you had type 1 diabetes, your body could recognize the signals sent out by insulin. It could recognize blood sugar and all that, okay, and it would deal with it and blah, blah, blah. However, time goes on and you're abusing it, the body's like, no more, next thing you know, you're insulin resistant. Now that can take a long time, okay? So, but what I'm saying is that process is usually pretty consistent, okay? So that's what we've got. We've got the first part of this system that we need to get the results we want. Now, when we're talking about behaviors, okay, if we follow this on now, behaviors in essence are the outputs, okay, of our brain. And those behaviors, obviously, if you remember, will go on and they will get you your weight loss, they will get you your fitness, they will get you your health, and you can carry it on to so many different aspects of life. But you can see that those outputs, those behaviors are the outputs, okay? So that's the next part. If we follow this round then, every time we get an output, we then, in most things, we've then got, we need somewhere to get some kind of feedback from that, okay? So, and this becomes then what we call the feedback loop, okay? So this is the feedback. Now that's either going to be positive or it's going to be negative. Here's an example. So let's say you're going to the gym every day for a week, okay? End of the week, you get on the scales and we look at what's going on, right? And we've either got a positive or a negative bit of feedback there, okay? Now, there will be other aspects of feedback. I chose weight, I chose exercise, and there's so many other ways to get feedback from that, whether it's changing body composition, whether it's an increase in pace, increase in strength, increase in muscle size, just a ton of different ways. One of the ways, if you're watching this video, chances are then weight management is one of your goals, and that's why I've kind of used the scale. So we get our little bit of feedback there. Now let's carry on with our system, and the next thing then is, or a part that's missing then, is our inputs. Now our inputs can be our thoughts, they can be what we eat, they can be how we sleep. There's just so many different factors, so obviously how we sleep is going to be massively important. What we're consuming, and I don't just mean food, I mean what you're watching on the telly, what you're putting into your brain. We shudder at the thought of gorging ourselves on fast food and shit food. However, we've got no problem consuming a load of shit media into our brains, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Reel, stories, all that kind of thing. Crappy news channels, it's just propaganda and bloody fear-mongering, all this kind of stuff are all inputs. The time you get up, what you say to yourself is huge, isn't it? You know what I mean? If you're saying to yourself that you don't actually value yourself much, or you're contradicting what your goals saying, right, I want to get really fit now. However, I'm a real lazy sod and I don't want to go to the gym, or don't want to get active, do a bit of gardening, and all this kind of stuff. So you can see the inputs, all right? So we're going to stick a couple of inputs in. We're going to do, we're going to do a moon. All right, we're going to do an apple. Yeah, as represent the diet. And then I'm going to do a dumbbell, represent exercise. So we've got our general inputs. So this is what we've got. We've got our system now of what's working. All right. So we've got our input. Let's follow it round. So our inputs into our body, that then runs the process. Okay. The process then generates output. So that'll be our behavior. Behavior gets our results. Okay, that we're talking about here. Okay, follow that round. We then get feedback from the system. It's either positive or negative, and then from there, okay, we can then go again with the inputs. And we've got this loop constantly going round. Okay, now the key thing then, and we're going to talk about this a lot more in the future, is what we need to do here is, as we get this feedback, positive, negative, we then need to go through a process then of optimizing, I don't know if that's spelled right, you tell me, optimizing these inputs, optimizing your sleep, optimizing your food, optimizing your training, just working on it. Now, as you can see with this process, lots of people sort of think, right, okay, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to get lean, I want a summer body within 2 months, okay, and you think, right, I'm just going to nail it from day one and go. Now, usually happens is there is this process of just optimizing things, getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, until you start to nail it. All right. And even when you've got the body you want and the fitness you want, you've still got to keep going, because the body is an amazing adapter, and it will soon adapt to the stresses and the things that you're doing with it. All right. And it'll start to get lazy. So you constantly need to be spicing it up. But ultimately, this is what we're looking at doing. So when we talk about being consistent, we know that the processes are going to be relatively consistent. And if anything, as we go through and we improve, they're going to get better. Your body's ability to clear blood sugar out the blood system using insulin and, storing fat, using fat, all these things, they're going to get better. Your gut lining is going to heal, so you can take in more nutrients. So the process is only going to get better when you start to do these things. All right. The outputs, with the behaviors, yes, we've got some work to do, and we've got some thought to do around this, because, for example, let's say, extreme example, you want to be a bodybuilder. Okay. Well, there'll be a load of characteristics, inputs, that bodybuilders have that give them bodybuilder results. And I don't know right now if the output you want, the results you want, I don't know if you're living those characteristics, if you have those characteristics in order to get that. Again, we're going to go through it in the future. There is a load of ways that you can get feedback. It doesn't just have to be on the scales. There's so many different ways. We're going to look at that in the future. And of course, every week we're going to talk about how you can optimize these inputs to get the results that you want. So I want you to have a quick look at your life and what's happening right now. Look where the holes are in what you're doing. Do you have a goal? Is it specific? Have you got the characteristics required to get those goals? Think about the inputs that you're putting in: your sleep, your eating, your training, your rest, what media you're consuming, all these kind of things, and is there holes in your inputs? Is there work to be done on optimizing those inputs? Be honest, because there is no change without honesty. But there is one factor that is missing here that will control all of this. Okay, and this is where fitness retreats and TEAM Bootcamp comes in. One area that will control the way that you gain your feedback is your environment. And I'm going to draw this as a sun, because when the sun is shining, the rays hit everything. And it's very much like that in regards to your environment. If your house isn't set up to facilitate the inputs that you require, if your life isn't set up to facilitate the inputs you need, and for you to have the characteristics of the person you want to become, then you're going to find it really hard, incredibly hard, nigh on impossible, I would say. And this is where getting away to somewhere which provides the environment for all this to take place. It's all well and good to have this process. Oh yeah, that's brilliant. And whatever your goal is, let's say your goal is to lose 4 stone. We had a client come to us recently, lost 4.6 stone in 10 weeks. You can check out his testimonial here. So let's say your goal is to lose 4 stone. We understand everything that we've got to do, but if this environment isn't here, if this isn't optimized, it ain't going to happen. And it can be anything from the people around you, like your family. They can sabotage you and they can enable you. But, if they're not on board, they're going to make it incredibly hard. Maybe you haven't got the time to go to the gym, and you're constantly trying to get to the gym and train and work out. How important it is. We just literally don't have the time. The environment is wrong. Let's say you have a job that forces you to be sat on your ass, and long distance lorry driver, shift workers, they have a horrendous time because they're sat on their ass doing nothing. They're bored. And when we're bored, fundamentally, when we look at why we eat, very rarely is it because we're hungry. Very rarely is it because we need a certain, nutrient in order to replenish the body. It's because we want to change emotion. We're bored, we're fed up, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're depressed. And we can always rely on that food just to pick us up. And it's shit because it lasts seconds sometimes, minutes if you're lucky. But we know it'll always be there. And if it starts off with 1 bag of crisps, and when that's not enough, you then go to 2 bags of crisps and a bar of chocolate. And before you know it, you're gorging, you're absolutely binging on food just to trying to change your emotion. Anyway, we got a bit deep. We're going to do a video on that in the future. So it's all well and good, but without the right environment, it's not going to work. Okay, so if you're looking at your system right now, and I'm talking about your family, your home, your work, all this kind of, and it's just not facilitating, or it's making it incredibly hard for you to get the results you want, you need to change it. And that's hard. What you need to do is you need to extract yourself fully from it. Come to TEAM Bootcamp, all right? And submerge yourself, immerse yourself in an environment that facilitates that makes it so easy that you will just lose weight. You follow the program, you can see the process, the system, okay, that you need to do in order to get the results you want, and it's free of that environment. And that will give you time to consider your environment and work out the changes you need to make. So I hope this video has been of interest. I've quite enjoyed doing it. I've got a load of different topics like this that I want to cover in the future. I have got one question. This all relies on having a goal, okay? Now, I don't know if you've really thought about your goals. If you have, stick them down in the comments below. I'd love to know what the goals are, because by sharing a goal, we actually make it much more likely that we're going to achieve it. So stick it down in the comments and let us know what you took from this session here today. Until the next video, take care.